Rachel Reeves has presented her budget, and on first impressions, it's not as bad as we were anticipating. There have been no changes to things like the amount of money you can have in an ISA or the amount of money you can put into a pension, nor the tax-free cash that you can take from a pension. So on the surface, it looks like maybe we got away not quite as badly as we initially expected. The biggest impact on people over 50 is potentially that pensions will become part of your estate for inheritance tax purposes from April 2027. This has been delayed because there are possible legal challenges that may occur, and it's not quite sure how that will actually be implemented in real life. So we'll have to wait a bit longer to really get our hands on the detail behind that important change. The biggest tax increase was a change in employers' national insurance by 1.2% to 15%, and the threshold for employers' national insurance has been reduced from £9,100 to £5,000. This will affect companies and then also some contractors that have their own companies when they do freelance work. So it's potentially showing that working and being part of the labour force is getting tougher every year. It was confirmed that income tax allowances will be frozen until 2028, as proposed by the previous Conservative government, and there will be no extension to freeze income tax allowances to 2030. So some of the rumours that we were fed didn't end up materialising, and maybe people feel a bit relieved when the budget finally comes around. There's no cap on the amount of money you can put into an ISA, and the annual contribution is still £20,000. However, the British ISA has clearly died a death, as there's absolutely no mention of it in the current budget. Another major change was the increase in capital gains tax on non-property assets from 10% to 18% at the basic rate and 20% to 24% at the higher rate. Given that capital gains tax is not indexed, so there's no allowance for increases purely due to inflation, and given the low limit on the amount of tax-free capital gains you're allowed, this is quite a blow to investors that have money outside of an ISA or a pension. I think as a future outlook, we're still not out of the woods because Labour is not happy that the lifetime allowance has been removed on pensions, and the maximum amount tax-free you can put into pensions has risen from 40,000 to 60,000, and they still feel that wealthy pensioners have a lot of tax breaks that they would like to reform, and I think it's likely they just didn't have enough time in this initial budget to sort out all the issues involved. So I would be prepared for more changes in the future. Inheritance tax has been frozen until 2030, so there'll be increased fiscal drag on the £325,000 that you're allowed to leave to your dependents, and also the relief on AIM shares has been reduced from 100% to 50%. Changes to inheritance tax support more and more the proposition that people should aim to die with zero, or at least die with an amount of money less than the inheritance tax allowance, because who wants to give 40% to the state on money they've already paid tax on? What are your thoughts about the budget? Is it a massive sense of relief? Let me know in the comments below. So is this a budget for growth? Well, I'd argue not particularly unless you are a house builder. But then on the other hand, I really think that very few budgets have been focused around delivering growth for the UK economy. They've more been focused on altering taxes and the public sector finances. Inflation forecasts were given in the budget at 2.5% for 2024, 2.6% for 2025, then 2.3% and 2.1% for the next couple of years, with a 2% target being the aim. This might be difficult to achieve given things like the minimum wage for over 21s rising by 6.7%, the state pension rising by 4.1%, and the energy price cap increasing by 9.5%. as well as some pay rises being given to people like train drivers. So we'll have to see whether inflation is actually contained within the government's target. And what this means is that it's going to be very difficult to cut interest rates in the future, given some of these inflation busting increases that are out there. And also, the 10-year gilt yield could potentially come under pressure because of the increased short-term government borrowing. So I'm not saying that interest rates will increase, but I feel that the scope to reduce interest rates is limited. I'm Ian Shadrack, a qualified accountant with over 30 years experience. I help people to prepare for their retirement by building wealth plans for them. If you're interested, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can also sign up to my mailing list for lots of useful information.